Project for today is going to be this John Deere 317 lawn tractor. It's got a Kohler engine in it. It's been repowered. This should have probably had the Onan 18 horse, and it's got a Kohler Command 18 horse. I noticed when I went to pick it up, I was trying to get it started, and it was shooting gas out of this gas line here. This is not really the proper gas line for a lawnmower. It should have more of this rubber style, so we're gonna have to replace that, running all the way back to the tank. It goes around and underneath to that valve right there. You can kind of see where it runs through. So we'll have to route a new line through there. And then I think we'll just see if it'll start. I don't know, it's just been sitting for a long time, but the oil looked okay in it. So I don't think it was too neglected. That looked pretty clean. I don't know when this was repowered. It looks like it's been in there for a while, but they did a pretty good job by the looks of it. Everything looks like it's correct the way it should be. So we'll start working on that gas line first, and then the other thing is this one hydraulic lever moves fine, but this one is stuck on the valve. The valve isn't moving the plunger back and forth, so I think we're gonna have to disconnect the linkage down there and try to either twist on that or try to tap it in and pull it back out a few times. I did spray some lube on it and let it sit for a few days, but it still hasn't really done anything. This is just slop in the lever that's actually moving here, so you'll have to excuse my voice. I have a little bit of laryngitis. It's been fighting with for a few days. It's starting to get better now that I can actually talk, so I'll get you set up and we'll get started. We'll start pulling this fuel line off. I did turn the valve off on the tank. I have a feeling this is probably just gonna bust. It is slowly coming off of there, but gotta be careful you don't bust the fitting off of the fuel pump. You can see how I'm just mashing the line. When this line gets rotten, it gets hard, and I'm just completely smashing it. You can see how stiff it is. It just holds the form. So I'll get pulling that out, and then I'll measure that up, and we'll cut a new length and throw the new one on. So I got the old line up pulled out of there, and I've got a new length cut. I was just going to show you quick. I always, if I'm going to be running through the frame and stuff with a fuel line, I'll always take some electrical tape and tape up the end of the line. Otherwise you end up jamming dirt and stuff in there, and that can end up going back into the fuel pump or the carburetor when you start it up. So it's just a good idea to plug it off until you actually get it back to where you're going to actually be putting the line. I am going to cut this at some point and put a fuel filter in it, because there was no fuel filter in the old line here. You can see how stiff that was. It's just not a very good line to use on a lawnmower. I ran out of my regular cheaper fuel line, so I'm using this Briggs & Stratton fuel line actually, so it's a little bit more expensive than what we really need on here, but that's what I had at the moment. So we'll get this fish back there and then figure out where we want to put the fuel filter. So it's kind of hard to see, but I've got the fuel line running down here along the frame, and I've got it zip tied there with the fuel filter, and then it runs just back along there all the way back to the tank. One thing I was going to show quick is if you ever run into a situation where you only have one hole to go through with the zip tie. This one there was two, but it was kind of the wrong orientation. So what I did was I just loop it both sides of the zip tie through the hole, and then you can tension it up and it catches on this hook if it's the right size hole. It's got to be smaller than this end, obviously, or it won't go through. but then you can cinch that up and get a nice loop to hold a fuel line like that. It's just a little zip tie trick that I've learned over the years. And you can see underneath here how it loops around the filter like that. So it's kind of a easy way to only have to, if you did have to drill a hole, you'd only have to drill one hole instead of drilling two for each spot for the zip tie to go through. I did the same thing back up there along the line. You can see there's a zip tie around that one too, holding it against the frame. So now I think we're ready. We can put a battery in this thing and we'll see if we can get it fired up. It shouldn't leak fuel anymore. This line here is a little bit hard, but we'll see if we can get that to, it'll get it to run with that line on there. I think it'll be okay as long as it's not leaking. Then we've got this pulse line for the fuel pump. That one doesn't feel too bad either. And it looks like our wire for the PTO clutch is kind of melted there. We'll have to see if that ends up working or if that's a problem that they're having with the PTO clutch. But I think I'll throw a battery in it and we'll see what we get. I'm not sure if this battery is going to be, might be a little too big to get the hood shut. Let's see. Oh, it still shuts on there. I'll have to spin it around though. This has kind of those quick clamps. They're not the greatest quality, but they do work. Our ground cable is kind of has a weird routing. It just kind of hangs out the outside. I don't really like that. I got an extra ground wire there. It does turn over though. Well, we'll give it a try and see if it'll fire up. That PTO clutch free spins when you shut it off, even if there's nothing hooked to it. That noise was kind of scared me when I first shut it off. I didn't know what was going on. But that's all it was, that pulley spinning. But we still have a fuel leak here. I'm not sure where it's coming from. It almost seems like it's coming out of the back of the fuel pump, so I wonder if we have a cracked fuel pump or something. So pull that off of there. I think I do have another fuel pump like this I can throw on there. But it did seem like it ran pretty good actually, so that's a good sign. I'm gonna pull this off of there then, I guess, and we'll see if it's got a crack in the back or what it's where it's leaking from. I'm gonna pinch off this fuel line. That fuel shut off on the tank didn't seem like it worked very good, so it was still leaking, so I figured I'd just pinch it off. And pull them 2 bolts out of there. Yeah, it does look like it was coming out of the backside. I'm wondering if that diaphragm is bad in there, just causing it to leak through. We'll get it cleaned up a little bit and we'll do a test, see what's going on in there. So I cleaned it up a little bit, and you can see there's gas coming out of that hole on the back side of the fuel pump on both those. There shouldn't be gas on that side of the diaphragm. So, because up here is where your pulse line goes, and that's what moves the diaphragm back and forth. And you can see it was leaking out of there, even just turning it. So we'll throw a different fuel pump on and try it again. So we've got a used fuel pump here we'll throw on. This one was off of a Briggs & Stratton, but it's still pretty much the same fuel filter or pump. And then we'll try it again. Oh, forgot to take my pliers off there. Well, that pump leaked worse than the other one. Worked for a little while and must have busted that diaphragm. That's one bad thing about trying to save these fuel pumps. I have a new one here, and when I took the little caps off it, they actually had a little bit of oil inside there to keep that diaphragm from drying out and getting brittle. So I'm thinking when I revved it up, it started fluctuating more and it ended up busting the diaphragm in there. So we'll swap that new one on there. I was just thinking I could save a little bit of money by putting a used one on there, but that one didn't work out for us. So we'll pop this back off of there again and throw that new one on, and hopefully that works. But my shutoff switch didn't shut the motor off when it started leaking like that. You notice I left it running for a while. It was because I turned the key off and it didn't shut off, so I had to choke it to get it to shut off. So you might have to monkey with that wiring. It might just be a loose connection on the back of the key switch or something, but I'll get this switched over and then we'll give it a try again. So I've got the new fuel pump on there hooked up. We'll try this again. We'll see if it'll shut off with the key this time too. the switch worked that time to shut it off. I didn't see any leaking this time, so I think we're good now. Now we can monkey with that hydraulic valve, see if we can get that freed up. Other than that, there's not too much else I don't think to do. It seems like it runs pretty decent. This one was a lot easier than I was thinking it was going to be. I do want to build some type of hitch on the back of here at some point where I can, like a 2-point hitch that I can lift up lawnmowers and stuff just to drag them around. That's how I had one mower set up, is I had a lift on the back with a hole in it like this, and I would come up to the back of a mower that didn't run, and I would run it underneath to lift up, and then I'd put a hitch pin through with a pin on it, and I could just lift the back of the mower up and then pull it around that way. That seemed to work pretty good, rather than building the actual tow truck version that goes under the front of a mower. Because the front ends are also different, but most of them usually have a hitch on the back that you can drag them around by. Plus the rear wheels are locked up on some of them, so it's nice to get the rear wheels off the ground anyway. But we'll get underneath and start figuring out that hydraulic valve now. So what I think I'm going to do here is try to pull this cotter key out of this pin, and then we'll disconnect this linkage completely, and then I can get on the end of that plunger and see if I can end up moving it that way. Because right now it's just kind of bending the linkage and stuff. This cotter key is a lot tougher than it looks like it would be. And it wants to spin on me. Well, after fighting with that cotter key longer than I should have, I finally got it out of there. So there's just a pin through it. And that was kind of the problem, is that pin was just spinning as I was trying to get the cotter key out, so I couldn't get any leverage on it. So then I think what I'll do is see if I can turn this a little bit. I'll get something better to try to move that with. Then maybe we can tap in on it. It is pulled out. I got it to pull out when I was monkeying with the lever, and then it stuck that way. So first I'm just going to try tapping on it. It moved quite a ways in there. I didn't think it was stuck quite as bad as it seemed like, but I'll try putting a vice grips on it, and I can tap it back the other way. And then we can move it a little bit too, kind of free everything up. Because now I can go in by hand and it comes back out, but it's not, I don't think we're going out as far as it should go. I'll try putting that pin back through, and we'll see if we can move it with the lever now. Not a heck of a lot of space. There we go, I got that through. So now it'll push in, but I don't think it's pulling out as far as it should go. I'll get some more lube to put on there and then keep working it back and forth, see if we can get it to smooth out for us. So I got it to move pretty easy now. It does, going back like this, it pops back to center, but then forward it sticks that way, and I don't know, it kind of sounds like when it pops back that's like a detent for like an implement that you'd want the hydraulics to stay on all the time. I don't know, I'm not too familiar with the hydraulics on these John Deeres, if that's supposed to stay forward like that, or if I still have it's just sticking. But it should work now anyway. Because this one is actually the lever for your lift for the mower deck, and then it'll also run, there's 4 ports here, so you can have 2 cylinders on the front of it at a time, from my understanding. The snowblower that I have on my 316 is just a single cylinder on just the lift up and down, so I'm probably gonna upgrade to using this one instead of that 316, just because this one's a little bit heavier and the rear end and stuff is getting a little bit weak on the 316. I don't see an hour meter anywhere on this one. The 316 has one in the side here, but I don't know if that's a factory option or not. And the steering is a little bit loose. I think I'll try to tighten that up too. There's a adjustment down here. You can't really see it, but I was gonna watch the free play and see, which that actually looks like it's moving like it should. I don't know if we have a loose bushing somewhere or what, but might be down underneath here in this part. Yeah, you can, I don't know if you can see that on camera. Oh, that's kind of wobbling back and forth. There's a bushing back in here that must be worn out, is where we're getting the loose steering from. Otherwise, all this stuff doesn't feel too loose. I think we're ready to take it out for a test drive to see how everything works. I want to see how that rear end is and everything, since the one on the 316 is getting weak. And this has a little bit heavier style rear end in it by the looks of it, and it has better brakes. It's got the split brakes, so you can turn really sharp with these if you hit the one brake at a time when you're spinning around. So that's a little bit nicer feature too, where I just have the single brake on the 316. But we'll get our tools cleaned up and take it for a drive outside to see how it does. Well, I got it out back. I put a ball hitch on it. We're gonna hook up this little trailer here and see how it tows. I got some stuff I need to clean up out of the shop. I'll throw on the trailer and see how it does. Doesn't idle very well, but seems like when you run the throttle up, then it's fine. Probably running some of that old gas out of there. I don't know how old that gas is that's in there. I loaded up a parts mower I had in the shop, and then a snowblower I had in there that I parted out. So we'll haul these back out back, and the snowblower is probably going to go in the scrap pile, and then this mower's still got a good rear end in it, so we'll save that off to the side for now. Well, it seemed to work pretty good. It wasn't too heavy of a load. That mower didn't have a motor in it, but it was still a little bit of weight. And then in the snow, it's a little bit slippery, so I thought it did pretty good for not having any wheel weights or chains or anything. But this isn't too long of a video like usual, but this one was a little bit easier to get going than I thought it was going to be, so keep it short and sweet on this one. If you like this sort of thing, like the videos and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.